Okay, so you've been love bombed maybe into the abuse dynamic, but whatever happened, you you had a vision of who this person was, what the relationship was, and what it means that is slowly revealing itself not to be accurate. And it's very hard to let go of a thing we want to be true. It's very hard to let go of a thing that we've invested a lot of emotional and mental energy and physical resources into, especially if you've had sex with them. So you're like really committed to wanting to believe that the emperor has clothes. So, what victims of abuse do next is often what really compounds the abuse dynamic for themselves. And that is like unintentionally, obviously. They want to validate that this person that they're with is a good person, a person who loves them, a person worth loving. And so they will go out and say to other people about how great the abuser is. And they will push away people who are like, I don't know about that. And because they want to believe in a specific fantasy. They want to believe in a reality that's not true. And so in order for themselves to kind of like do that, they'll push anyone telling them the truth away. So then they're only surrounded by people who are like, well, okay, yeah, well, we'll glaze you up if that's what you want. And it's hard because you may know and you may not, you may recognize like, I can't say anything at this point. So I'm not saying that anyone has to say something to the victim, just sort of like we're observing what's happening. So now the victim is surrounded by people who are at least appear to be in agreement with the false reality that the abuser is the best, the most amazing, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, the abuser is doing the opposite thing. The abuser is saying things in public to other people that denigrate the victim. And it starts off subtle and then it might escalate. I'll give you an example. So we were married at the time, but my ex-husband and I, we were at a parent teacher conference, and I was asking the teacher, and I think this was first grade, honestly, it might have been kindergarten. And I was asking the teacher like, hey, how are his social skills? How is he, what's the dynamic like in the classroom? Is he like a follower or leader? Does he just do like his own thing? I was trying to get like a read on sort of like what kind of person our son was developing into. And my, at the time, husband said, oh, yeah, she doesn't have a lot of friends. That's why she's worried about it. In the moment, I was so flabbergasted. I had no response. I sat there speechless. I could not believe. I was just frozen. I had no response. But the audacity is that out of the two of us, he had no friends. I'm the one who had friends. I had a friend group. I was going out. I was hanging out with people. It was not factual, but it was just so out of no. And that's the point at which I realized I was like, oh, he tells people things about me that are like covertly sabotaging. And they don't seem like big deals in the moment because who cares if this kindergarten teacher knows or doesn't know that I have friends? But he was like speaking something over me that wasn't true. And then, what if I start to believe it? Even though it's factually incorrect. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so you're out in public and they're saying things about you that are not complimentary, that are not lifting you up. They are doing the opposite of what the victim does. So the victim is basically putting forward the abuser as if they are the best person because they genuinely want to believe it. Or maybe at that point they do believe it. Or once you feel like you've told everybody that this person is so great, and then now you'll feel like an asshole if you go around and you say, I was actually wrong. He sucks. Then there's the element of things that, especially for older generations, you would get people telling you like, don't air your dirty laundry. So if you were the identified target in a family and you were the focus of like abuse and poor treatment, you were not in a position to go out and tell anybody because the family was concerned about the reputation. Why? Because the reputation is what determined everyone's standing in society. So they were happy to have the black sheep or scapegoat identified person basically be the bad person that would take on everything bad about the family's reputation and also just the internal dynamics of the family. put it all on that person. And then that way they've made a sacrifice out of you. And then they go out in public and they have like the best reputation. And so when you're in that dynamic and you're thinking, well, it's a rule, like you don't air your dirty laundry. But the thing is, it also shows up in relationship advice. In relationship advice, we often say like, hey, if you're having like a dispute, a disagreement, don't just go run to your friends and tell your friends about it, because then your friends will start to hate your partner, and and it will end up undermining the relationship, because then they won't have the forgiveness toward him that you will have. They won't have the grace toward him, or vice versa. Although I feel like dudes don't really talk. Well, take it out of gender. My bad. Sorry, guys. So there's still kind of like a version of that where in relationship advice, there's advice essentially to protect the relationship dynamic so that not every mistake a person makes gets broadcast. But again, with the rules lawyering, people will rules lawyer that and basically say you can't say anything. And so victims of abuse, again, trying to do the right thing, trying to be good, moral, ethical people, end up in a situation where they don't feel like they can tell anybody, or that if they do, they'll be socially castigated about it. So the thing is, this is again, I'm never like, don't do this. Well, not never. Generally speaking, I like guidelines. I don't like rules, because is that a possibly good relationship piece of advice depending on your relationship? Maybe. But also the Whisper Network is extremely effective and has protected many victims of abuse. So when you have like that hierarchical social structure and you can't come out on your own behalf, in a way that is public, right? But the Whisper Network will let other people, potential victims of abuse, know, oh, there's a problem here. So gossip can be bad, but a Whisper Network could be good. So it's, as always, it's a tool and you'll use it strategically. So anyway, victims are in the relationship. They've talked up the abuser. The abuser has talked down the victim. And now the victim, for whatever reason, is being isolated from people who are supposed to be their friends, their support, their network. And then the abuser ramps up the abuse. And it's hard to recognize that this is what's happening, because now you only have your own perspective and the abuser's perspective. And the abuser is dominating. That's why they're the abuser. So they are not allowing you to have your own perspective. They are dominating over you and trying to control you. And then they're justifying it by saying you did XYZ thing wrong. They do not have a sense that you get to make decisions for yourself. So now you're in the trap and you're starting to believe what the abuser is telling you about yourself. And now as it gets worse, as you justifiably have things you can point to, that's like, this is on the list of abuse, you're less likely to do it because the abuser has convinced you that they are not abusive, that you deserve what's happening to you. These are in fact, reasonable consequences or whatever. And then add in a spiritual layer sometimes, which is, like, for example, if you're a Christian, let's say you're a Christian woman, and you've got some guy who's being abusive to you, your husband, and he's saying stuff like, well, that's why God made man out of the woman, or that's why God made woman out of the man. That's factually wrong. Just on a little side note, not proselytizing. The reason God makes woman out of the man is he had already made man out of the earth, and then it gave man dominion over the earth. So he can't make the woman out of the earth, because then man has dominion over the woman. That's not what he wants. So he makes the woman out of the man. So they equally have dominion over the earth, and that she is an equal to him. And also in the Hebrew, it's actually not rib, it's side. So basically it's as if God has taken the woman from the man, like they're, again, with equalness. I've already addressed the marriage thing in another video too, so I'm not going to go too in depth in it. But I just want to say that there are concepts out there that can help you protect yourself from people misusing spiritual resources at you. For example, if you are in a spiritual dynamic, why is my light being weird? If you're in a spiritual dynamic and the abuser says to you, we've made a spiritual contract before we incarnated on this earth. You made a promise to me. We are supposed to teach each other lessons. There's no bad. Nothing I'm doing to you is bad, and you asked for all of these things that I'm doing to you. No. The reason why, just now we're doing the defense for this. The reason why this is wrong, because in reality, in time, we experience time. That means we experience cause and effect. That means we can make choices. That means we have choices to make. So don't let someone trick you into thinking you can't make a choice on your own behalf anymore. You do not make a choice and then that's it. That's the choice you have made for other than like being a parent. Now, do we attempt to try and do that with each other? Like, let's say in a relationship or a marriage? Yes, but also we all know we're human and things happen and you got to be oriented on safety. And frankly, theoretically, you could be married and just not living together. Like, oh no, we're married. I'm not doing anything with anybody else. But also, I don't need to be present here for this. So if you've got someone who's doing a karma thing against you, oh, well, this is your karma from things you've done in a past life. Absolutely not. And I'll tell you why. One, they can't know that. Okay. And two, then they are doing the thing that gives them bad karma in a future lifetime. How does that make sense? So they still shouldn't be doing it. Hypothetically speaking, let's say they were correct, which they're not. If you had done something in a past life and now deserve whatever bad thing is happening at you and the way you're being treated by like family or people, them treating you that way means they are setting themselves up for bad karma in the future. So when you are experiencing these like entrapment ideas, things that are being told to you by the abusers that will make you think, oh, I can't take action on my own behalf. I can't make choices on my own behalf. I can't tell anyone. That's generally not going to be true. Regardless of whether they believe it, it's lies. So what's really important for victims of abuse is to get to a point where they're looking up information, they're going to websites and, maybe talking to your friends or loved ones. I can't tell you how many victims of abuse I know that have basically said, I'm trapped in this relationship and I don't know what to do. I can't get out. What do I do? And my first question is like, well, do your parents know? Are they safe people to tell? Like, what about your family? And they're like, well, no, I don't want to tell them. Well, why don't you want to tell them? Well, I don't want them to think badly of my partner. And also then they'll be disappointed in me if I don't leave. So we have we're in a position now where we have conflicting goals that don't go together. You can't achieve the one goal without the other. And at some point, the abuse gets bad enough where you have to focus on personal safety. You have to focus on safety. You have to start to not center the abuser in your mental calculations because doing so means you won't exist. So the abuse is very much, in my opinion, a mind game. And there are the physical structures that keep victims in the abuse dynamic. But so many of the structures that keep them in the abuse dynamic are these mental structures, these ways of thinking. And also, just on a side note, a lot of victims of abuse have taken on so much emotional and physical and even spiritual responsibility for this other person that they have subconsciously put themselves in the position of being that person's parent. And do parents abandon their children? Not if they're good ones. So subconsciously now, the victim is looking at the abuser like it's a child that they are responsible for, and they can see every reason why all the trauma and stuff they've gone through has created the person that now exists in front of them, and they just want to heal them with their love and want to be there for them. And I've made this promise to you. And if I walk away, it's like I'm abandoning a child, and I can't do that. But it's all happening subconsciously. So we aren't able to make like a real choice about it. It's not your child. This is an adult. They are responsible for themselves. Yes, are we interdependent in healthy relationships? Absolutely. But you are not trapped in this position where you have to endlessly self-sacrifice at this other person so that they can be well. They're not even well. The thing about being an adult is that you have authority and power over yourself. They have authority and power over themselves. When you're a parent, the reason why parents can be the way they are with children is because they have a lot of control and power. They have the power to give consequences. They have the power to do punishments. They have the power to recognize, oh, this isn't going in a good direction. Okay, we need to reevaluate. They're in the position of power over that child. And it's not the correct parenting is not the mirroring of the abuse dynamic. My definition of abuse is when another person powers over the victim for the abuser's benefit at the victim's expense. A parent may power over the child, but it's for the child's benefit at the parent's expense. It's the templates do not go together. So anyway, I hope this makes sense, and I'll talk to you next time.